There are also sixfold paths. 1. Path of the damned, path of the animals, path of the pretas, path of humans, path of the gods, and path of the arhats. 2. Paths of abandonment of the six objects. 3. Paths of the six comities. 4. Paths of the six super-knowledges. 5. Paths of the six kinds of arhats. 6. Paths of development of the six stages. 7. Paths of the six meditative stabilizations. 8. Paths of the six perfections, each of them including six paths in turn. There are innumerable sixfold paths of this kind. Sevenfold paths. There are also sevenfold paths. 1. Paths of the seven factors of body. 2. Pure paths of the seven stages. 3. Meditation paths of the seven notions. 4. Paths of the seven purities. 5. Paths of the seven virtuous people. 6. Paths of the seven riches. 7. Paths of the seven riches of the Dharma. 8. Paths of the seven auxiliary meditative absorptions. There are innumerable sevenfold paths of this type. Eightfold paths. There are also eightfold paths. 1. Noble Eightfold Path. 2. Paths of the Eight Liberations. There are innumerable eightfold paths of this kind. Ninefold paths. There are also ninefold paths. 1. Path of the nine successive absorptions. 2. Pure paths of the nine stages. 3. Paths of cessation of the nine views. 4. Paths of the nine classes of arhat. 5. 9 paths of the bodhisattvas, namely, the six perfections, skillful means conversion of beings and the purification of the Buddha fields. There are innumerable ninefold paths of this kind. Tenfold paths. There are also tenfold paths. 1. Paths of the 10 asykses. 2. Paths of the 10 notions. 3. Paths of the 10 bases of the spheres of totality. 4. The 10 bad paths of action, the 10 good paths of action, and so on up to paths. These are the innumerable headings concerning the paths. Knowledge of the aspect of the paths. The exhausted knowledge, the complete knowledge of these various paths is the knowledge of the aspect of the paths. 1. The aspect of the paths is absence of nature. Question. The prajna parameter is the single path of the bodhisattva. Its sole nature is the absence of nature. Why then speak of the various paths? Answer. These paths all end up in a single path, namely, the true nature of dharmas. At the beginning of the practice, they show many particularities, but at the end, they are all equal and alike and no longer show any differences. In the same way, at the time of the final conflagration, all existing things are gathered into empty space. However, in order to convert beings, the bodhisattva makes distinctions and speaks of many paths, mainly the worldly path and the supraworldly path, etc. 2. Worldly path and supraworldly path are mingled into one single non-existence. Question. Why does the bodhisattva established in the single nature, 1. In the absence of nature, distinguish a worldly path and a supraworldly path? Answer. That which is called world comes from an erroneous thought and a deceptive duality. It is like a magic show, a dream, the circle of fire drawn by a firebrand. Worldly people arbitrarily take it to be the world, but this world is false. False today, it has been false from the beginning. In reality, it does not arise, it does not act. It comes only from causes and conditions consisting of the coming together between the 6 inner organs and the 6 outer objects. But in order to conform to the prejudices of worldly folk, we speak of the world. The many wrong views about the world are like tangled threads. Whoever clings to them wanders in samsara eternally. That is how to know the world. What is the supraworldly path? Knowing the world in conformity with reality is the supraworldly path. Why? The wise person has looked very hard for the world and the supraworld. These two things do not exist. Since they do not exist, we should know that the world and the supraworld are only denominations. We speak of the supraworld merely to destroy the world. The self-nature of the world is precisely the supraworld, and the latter is even more non-existent. Why is that? The nature of the world being non-existent, the supraworld is eternally empty of worldly nature, for any fixed nature in things of this world is non-existent. Thus the yogin does not find the world and does not cling to the supraworld either. If he does not find the world, he is not attached to the supraworld. Having destroyed affection and aversion, he does not debate with the world. Why? Because, knowing for a long time that the world is empty, non-existent and deceptive, the yogi no longer has memory or thought construction. By world we mean the 5 aggregates. But even if the Buddhas of the 10 directions looked for the nature, they would not find it, for the aggregates are without a starting point, without a resting point and without a point of departure. The impossibility of finding the natures of coming, staying and departing in the 5 aggregates constitutes the supraworld. From then on, the yogi considers the world and the supraworld as being really invisible. He does not see any connection between the world and the supraworld, nor any connection between the supraworld and the world. Beyond the world, he sees no supraworld, and beyond the supraworld, he sees no world. Thus he does not produce the twofold idea of world and supraworld. Rejecting the world without adopting the supraworld, this is the supraworld. But the bodhisattva who knows this can, in the interest of beings, make distinctions between worldly path and supraworldly path. Nevertheless, whether they are impure or pure, the paths of all dharmas come together in a single nature, namely, the absence of nature. This is what is called the knowledge of the aspect of the paths. Second section, winning omniscience and the knowledge of all the aspects. The bodhisattva aspires to omniscience, the knowledge of all dharmas, conditioned and unconditioned, isolated or grouped, existent or non-existent, true or false. There are 2 kinds of omniscience, perfect or imperfect. 1. Perfect omniscience cognizes all dharmas under the general characteristics and their specific characteristics. The general characteristics of dharmas are 3 or 4 in number. All dharmas are impermanent, suffering, empty and selfless. The specific characteristics are infinite in number. These are, for example, the solidity of the earth element, the moistness of the water element, etc. etc. Perfect omniscience belongs only to the Buddhas. It is called omniscience in the full sense of the word, or also knowledge of all the aspects, to show that it extends to the specific characteristics of the dharmas. 2. As well, there are imperfect or incomplete omnisciences that bear upon only the general characteristics of the dharmas and a restricted number of the specific characteristics. They are the exploits of the first 2 vehicles, the Sravakas and the Pratyeka Buddhas. It is wrong that they are sometimes called omniscient. The proof of this is that the wisest of them are unable to answer all the difficult questions they were asked. Buddha, Arhat and Pratyeka Buddha have access to their respective omnisciences or bodies by using the paths or vehicles of their choice. Each having attained their final goal, they no longer use the knowledge of the paths or the knowledge of the aspect of the paths. Indeed, they say, the path already practiced by me is no longer to be.